Hi everyone, welcome to another book talk for the Latinx in Kidlit blog. I am Dora Guzman, one of the contributors, and I'm here again with...
I'm Sonia Alejandra Rodriguez, and I'm also a contributor to the Latinx in Kidlit blog.
And today we're talking about Not a Bean, written by Claudia Guadalupe Martinez, illustrated by Laura Gonzalez. And it is a story about how the game Jumping Beans came together. It goes through this pod, right? And there's little seeds in the pod, and they're not a bean, right? It's not a bean the whole time, and they're going through the desert, meeting various animals, until finally, right? Again, spoiler alert, you should already be ready for spoiler alerts in our book talks, until it transforms into a moth. So this book was published in 2019. So what did you think about it, Sonia?
I did not know what Mexican jumping beans were until I read this book. And it's a very detailed book about the Mexican jumping beans and its process and the larvae and how they eat themselves in this little shell thing. And then they jump around. And then, yeah, like I said, I don't think blossom is the right word, grow into a moth at the end. I was like, oh. And so I like the way that Martinez combined, it felt very scientific, or it probably is, and this like fictional story of these friends finding these Mexican jumping beans in the desert, and they decide to play with them and they investigate them, which is probably like what you see like this cover, right? They're like, what is this? Why is it jumping?
Yeah.
And then it opens. It's a beautiful moth.
Yeah, I think you mentioned too before this video that you weren't expecting to learn so much about, right, that cycle of life with the larvae and the moth. And just like you, this is my first time finding out about jumping beans. It reminded me a lot of like when I used to grow up, when I was growing up and played a lot with like canicas, right, with marbles. So a lot of the same. There were similarities in that, and that's where I made the connection. I'm like, oh, this is a childhood game. But throughout this whole time, right, the not a bean, right, these little pods or seeds are meeting various animals, which then you also get to learn about them.
Yeah, it's a counting book, right? Did we say that it's a counting book? Yeah. Right? And so I think what I appreciated about that was that they're counting in Spanish, and we previously talked about the ways that sometimes Spanish either gets italicized or there's a different color for it, or I don't know, translations tend to be weird. But in this book, the Spanish is part of the English text, right? It's not italicized, it's just included as part of the narrative, and children can learn about very easily, right? Its context, can learn about not only the Mexican jumping bean, but how to count in Spanish. And so in this book, like it goes up to 10, right? And they encounter these different animals, right? Snakes, there are wolves,
clouds,
and stars, clouds, there's waves. Yeah, it's awesome.
And it's in a phrase, right? So it's not just isolated, because like you said, sometimes translation in books can be a little awkward, especially reading it. And when I read this, it just flowed very well, right? It just flowed. And it's like, seis nubes, send rain down hard. And it's not italicized, and it's just used in an authentic manner. So when you are reading it, right, to a multilingual class of anything of that sort, then, you know, you're learning, right, the various numbers, but you could also figure it out in context if you do not speak Spanish. And you learn what that means. And that's what I loved about it. Like one of the illustrations, I know you mentioned waves, was this one where where they're talking about where's the little pod? Oh, here it is, the little bean right there, how they're going through el arroyo, right? So there's various words in here about geographical locations, but then there's 6 clouds, right? And you can count them. And on each page, it illustrates, right, what's being counted. I just love these illustrations though too, because even though they're made in Photoshop, and I know the talent and the hard work that goes beyond, you know, within digital art, and just the detail in that art, the waves, how it moves, and then how it includes that rain alongside it. It just, there's a lot to take in, and I love it.
Yeah, I agree. Every time that we talk about illustrations, I'm just always so impressed with the artists, because their job is particularly difficult to need to capture like the story that they're trying to represent, but they're trying to capture it without words, right? And so their characters need to be emotive, the environment needs to capture, right, the essence of the story. And I think this illustrator did it brilliantly. One of the illustrations that was my favorite is the one with the 10 stars, or las 10 estrellas. And I just particularly like the description or the depiction of like the desert, where I guess the arroyo, the cacti, the colors, right? It's at night, so you have different shades of greens, browns. And it just felt like a very like beautiful image. And I've been to the desert, and it just kind of feels like that. It feels like the stars are really that big, and it feels like they're just in your face, taking up the whole place. And it just looks such a beautiful sight, and I like that spread for that reason.
Yeah, like it looks like the stars are like glowing, right? And that they're really distinct. They're distinguished as stars, right? Not it's like if you live close to the city, sometimes you're lucky if you see a couple stars. And I like how the artist again zooms in and out of the desert, right? So you get close-ups of waves, you get close-ups of animals, but then you also get that big picture view, right, of the entire desert, where any reader can really explore, right, this ecosystem. Here's me using scientific words.
See, we're learning stuff from books. You see, we learn too.
So, and you see, right, all the various plants, animals, movements, everything that goes on in the desert, right? It's not just still life. And then there's still that main character, right, of the beans, and how at the end you learn how the children, right, it comes back to how the children are playing this game, right? And how eventually then it just flows into, okay, then the bean transforms into this beautiful moth, and you learn about it, right? Now it's become part of an ecosystem. I don't know, I just felt like the stories ebbed and flowed, right? There's like 2 stories, but it really ebbed and flowed where any reader can really follow along.
Yeah. I also just I'm particularly drawn to like the focus like of the book, of the Mexican jumping bean, of the small creature. It is a small, insignificant, you probably wouldn't have thought about it, right? We don't think of moths as beautiful as butterflies, right? Moths don't get the same like treatment that butterflies do in our culture, right? But I think what I'm learning and what I'm going to appreciate more are books that highlight nature in that way, that highlight like these what could be minute and significant aspects like of our environment, of our ecosystem, the ways that we like live our lives. And like Martinez and Gonzalez like brought this right to the forefront to highlight how significant it is as part of its environment and our culture.
Yeah. And at the end, they're all super excited, right? And you see that moment where, again, it transforms into this moth. And I know I'm always trying to keep moths out of, my house, especially at night.
I know, because they eat your clothes. I'm telling you, they don't get the same treatment as butterflies.
They don't, but they're just as, important and beautiful in their own way. I can't believe I said that about a moth, but like you learn about these things, right? You learn about like, oh, I didn't know they had similar, I should know, right? But I didn't know that they had a similar transformation as a butterfly, right? They're in this small space, and given enough time, when they're ready, they transform. So
yeah, it's definitely changed the way I see a moth. I'll think twice before I try to get them out of my closet or clothes or whatever.
Yeah, this book would be great just for any reader. Again, we learned about so much about not only about the game, but about the desert and the animals and just how the moth evolves. I think any reader would appreciate it too.
Yeah, it does such a great job. Like Martinez and Gonzalez do such a great job of just, again, telling the story of this very specific creature, animal, insect, and there's like a diverse like cast of children learning about it, playing together, in a what I think is a non-typical like setting, right? It's not a city, it's not a large town, right? But we have the arroyo, like with desert, and I liked it. It felt new, right? And I think we need more of these books.
100%. Highly recommend. Again, thank you, Sonia, for joining me again on another book talk for Not a Bean. Check out the rest of our videos on our YouTube channel, follow our Twitter and Instagram, and can't wait to talk about the next one next time. So see you all later. Bye.